Greetings, everybody. Thank you so much for being here with me. I'm Tyler Ellison. I'm joined by my friend Starshine, and together we are bringing to you Ryokah channeled. Ryokah is my Sasanian counterpart. Could be said he is my future self in a certain sense. And I've been working with this entity since 2017. This connection has been going on for a while and deepens every time we do these Q&As each and every single Friday, and all of you help to deepen that connection. In these Q&A channelings, all of you, the audience, have the ability to submit your questions into the chat. Starshine's going to go through the question list and is going to select the ones that are the most resonant and the most relevant for the channeled energy and for Ryokah. So we're going to be bringing him through in just a moment. I have a few exciting announcements I'm going to be bringing to you all now before we get started. This is going to be one of the last live streams on YouTube that we do for a little bit. I'm going to be traveling to Japan for our channeling retreat. Myself and legendary channeler Robert Gauthier are going to be doing co-channelings, leading CE5s and contact meditations in two major locations in Japan. The first one is near Mount Fuji, and the second one is in Amori. So we have two parts of the country, two events, and it's going to lead to very diverse contact experiences. And when we start working with these power centers like Fuji, what we want to remember is that power center that is the mountain is a part of a mountain collective consciousness. The goddess who rules Fuji is said to not just rule Fuji, she is an influence for all volcanoes across the whole planet. So the reason Japan picked us, like I don't think I like it's not like I was like, hey, Japanese people love my stuff. Like I was brought into that. And the reason for that is these contact techniques, when they are combined with physical reality in terms of power centers like this, a key goes into a lock that opens a door, and we can open a lot of doors. So in the future, you can expect a great deal of retreats that we're going to be offering all over the world. Japan will always be one of our top priorities. It's a wonderful location. If you haven't been, I recommend it. It is one of the most fantastic places to visit. The people, the culture, the nature, the architecture, everything is very beautiful. There's a high standard, and the spiritual power there is abundant. It is vibrating. The whole place is vibrating, unlike any other spiritual place I've been to around the world. And that's in a culture, that's in a whole country. It's very noticeable. So I'm very excited to offer that. Stay tuned for the upcoming retreats and adventures that we will be offering that help our timelines, because we're all on our own timelines, to all resonate together with the contact experiences. So we can have that shared version of Earth where it's not just open contact, but it's the open contact that we prefer. And that is a very important distinction, because contact will be achieved. And that is another split point when we get to 2027. That's another moving through the prism, right? How contact unfolds across the different timelines. So we are playing an active role in that preparation now. I'm going to be returning from that trip on July 3rd, July 2nd. So we'll pick up the YouTube Q&A live streams that Friday, which is going to be the 4th of July. So I will see you guys at that future date. But until then, let's enjoy this connection, this time and experience that we're able to share together here. I'll be going deep into the channeling state, activating the multidimensional portals that exist within the center of each of my chakras. And from that place of activation, I'm going to bilocate and resonate with Ryokah and the Sasanian collective. From here, my personality leaves and his personality comes through. And once that link's established, he's going to open up with the major topics of importance. And then once he's finished with that opening, we're going to shift right into your questions. I know we started this live stream a little bit late today. I was doing some meditation in nature. Whenever I do that, time will shrink. A 5-minute meditation becomes like 20 minutes. It feels like 5. So it's, a side effect of the higher levels is time distortion, very similar to channeling. These channeling conversations for me usually feel like 5, 10 minutes. And of course, it's usually an hour or an hour plus. So I apologize for that, but we will compensate by going a little past the hour mark today. So we started about 15 minutes late. So we'll go for about 50 minutes. So that's going to bring us to 1:15, I believe, or sorry, 2:15 Eastern time when we finish. So thank you guys for being here. Thank you for making this possible. And I appreciate you all so much. This is a wonderful adventure. And every day that I'm alive and applying energy into this, the more I am seeing the contact and psychic reality becoming more vivid, becoming more alive, and also more collectively experienced. So we are in a great awakening. And thank you for being a part of it. I'll see you on the other side. Enjoy the transmission. Lord, we thank you all for joining us for this ecstatic co-creative transmission that we share with one another. This day of your times, it is a time of great transformation on your world, as many of you are well aware. Do keep in mind that it is as if you are occupying many worlds simultaneously, and it is imperative that this teaching is deeply remembered by your people. Remember that it is only 2025 in certain parts of the world. If you go to other locations, other countries, other cultures, you will see they are not living in 2025. So this sense of time that you are all agreeing to, this is a construct, and it is reinforced by a sense of culture. So you see the 2025 themes of relevance playing out in the cultures that have a sense of needing to move forward, needing to improve, needing to expand. In other locations, the priorities are different. The goals are different. The cultures are different. Those aren't the same values. So the same things are not produced. They are not chosen. They are not selected. So you will find that you have many worlds within your world. You even have the idea of a first world country, second world country, third world country. Many different worlds in your worlds. And even in your modern societies, you have the idea of different class systems, different levels within your hierarchies that allow for certain opportunities and disallow for others. Worlds within worlds within worlds. This was greatly observed in ancient India when they had their caste system. That idea of different worlds, different realities was very obvious. You are in a time now where themes like equality are greatly emphasized, and this creates the experience of all people more or less sharing the same reality. And there is A beauty in that, a goodness in that. People are able to acquire rights that they perhaps did not have within the society. They're able to optimize their lives. They're able to access resources and connections much more easily. So there are tremendous values to which you have created in your more modernized expression of culture and society. However, there is an important thing to keep in mind in the attempt to make everyone equal. Oftentimes things get homogenized, and the uniqueness, the specialness that makes people, cultures, locations, places different can at times, because of that homogenization, become less obvious. We remind you are all in your own living universes, each and every single one of you. Each of your personal realities can be vibrationally aligned to whatever frequency of time you prefer, whatever location on or off of the planet you prefer. Your universe could have a different origin story than the major scientific ones or the origin stories that the people around you buy into. Remember, you are a sculptor, you are a builder, and you have been artistically building your life all along. And you are at a time now where things are becoming so malleable energetically. You can rearrange the entire narrative. Imagine you're creating a story and you have to invent a universe as the set and setting for the story you're writing. How did that universe come into existence? What were the original beings like? How did they create the stars? How did they create the planets? How did they create the earth? What is their relationship to humanity? How have they encouraged humanity to grow? What is their vision for humanity? What's humanity's vision for itself in this universe? They might not even be calling themselves humanity in that universe. There might be another name that you create that is more representative of the version of humanity you choose to manifest in your experience of physical reality. You have that degree, that level of malleability at your fingertips right now. It is only 2025 if you choose it. It is only the collective reality given to you through the news media outlets if you choose it. It is only the spiritual realities and the frequencies of New Earth for you if you choose it. It is all a matter of focus. Your experience could be summarized in the following few words. It's all perspective. So remember, you have multiple levels of your beingness. If you know yourself only as physical, you will be limited to your physical capabilities. Your physical capabilities are brilliant. And if you only know physical action, then you will limit the magnificent potential and capability that your body possesses. The neuronal and nerve complexes, these correspond with your chakras. The hormonal glands correspond with your chakras. The major arteries also correspond with chakras and energy centers. So even as just a physical being, all of the necessary ingredients and energies are present for the light body and the higher dimensions of the light body to be able to awaken. So even if a person is the most materialistic, physical, dense being you could imagine, they possess all of the necessary ingredients within them for a spiritual awakening. Every single person on your planet, you are made in the image and likeness of the original template of the universe itself. That's one of the things that makes humanity quite special. Remember, the Anunnaki beings traveled here. When I say here, I'm talking about this universe. So their blueprint, slightly different than the blueprint of this universe. Humanity created here was created in the image and likeness of this particular universal scaffolding. So all humans possess the necessary ingredients for a spiritual awakening. And as The energy centers are visualized as they're activated through mantra, as they are stimulated through massage and breath work. All of that physical energy is upgraded into spiritual energy, and it's like a whole new part of the brain, a whole new part of the nervous system begins to awaken, and there's no limit to that. You can continue to deepen the awareness, and it will continue to expand infinitely forever, and it will get to a point where you become relatively omniscient. Whatever you need to know will be known. Whatever you need to perceive will be perceived, and that will inspire relative omnipotence. If you know what you need to know, it's very easy to do what you need to do. And that type of spirit, that type of motivation, it is contagious. So if you live in such a way, people around you will begin to live in such a way, whether they are very spiritual people or not. They will become more spiritual just through you living in this way. And it will be as if that spirit that animates you is present in everyone around you. And you will have relative omnipresence. And this is the source perspective. This is what you are all developing within yourself. The omniscience is the reasoning for the title of this live stream Q&A today, the Living Luminous Libraries. Photons of various frequency surround you and flow through you at all times. In every single photon, it is as if a hologram of the Universal Library of Alexandria is present. In every photon, there is the entirety of the existence, all the information. Every photon that comes to you, that you take in with your eyes, with your skin, it doesn't come to you randomly. It's sent to you. The light knows you. It has the holographic impression of the existence within it, and it has aligned itself with your frequency, and you have aligned yourself with its frequency. So the light that you take in chooses you as you choose it. And in that way, all experiences are selected because all experiences are perceived through light. All things generate various frequencies of light, even if that may be in another dimension of the existence. So all vibrations will have a luminosity, even if that luminosity is only expressed on another level. So remember that in creation, you have the idea of the Big Bang that happened aeons ago, and you're moving forward through time, riding that momentum. I remind you, the Big Bang and this moment are happening in the same moment. They're happening at once. So the creation and the end of the universe, if you will, it's the same moment. And in that way, you can hold not just your own story, but everyone's story, the story of everything. If you know the beginning and you know the end, you will know everything in between through your experience. We thank you for being open to these words and to these ideas. We thank you for remembering you have this capability within you to personalize your existence in ways that inspire and illuminate the creative heart of your inner being and those whom appear around you. So, thank you for reflecting this light back to us. And now we are prepared to take your questions and your sharings. Please proceed.
Great. It's great to see you again, as always.
It is a delight to have contact with you in this way and to be able to communicate and share with you and your multi-dimensional team. It is refreshing to express and to see very clearly the many multidimensional tunnels that the information will move through as we share, not just to you, but to others here. So remember, the more spiritually awakened you are, the more levels of the aura are active and stable within you and around you. These stabilized levels of the aura allow for portals to be opened that connect you from the oversoul network to counterparts. So when we speak these words, we are not just speaking to an audience, we're speaking through an audience across space, across time. We appreciate it.
Very exciting. So let's start with our first question. So we have programs, the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence, the SETI programs. Can you give us an idea of perhaps what they would be able to find in certain locations or frequencies?
So they have a specific protocol for how they measure what they determine and qualify as communication. So some of their methods are limited to more physical means of communication and detecting more physical means of communication. They are beginning to look into what we would describe as electromagnetic anomaly, and this, of course, can be seen with certain weather patterns. However, these types of effects can also coincide with distortions in the atmosphere created through the presence of multidimensional or extraterrestrial craft. So there is a process that is being initiated that is allowing for the detection means to be a little bit more sophisticated, and that will actually produce a higher degree of success in the detection. Because if you're looking for things like radio signals and broadcasts like that, these are older technologies that are more limited to the physical reality. Most extraterrestrials are less physical than you. They're quasi-physical. They will densify and become more physicalized through contact with all of you and through proximity to your Earth. However, those types of more physicalized means of communication, this is not something they have evolved with. It's not something they really needed to develop. Most of these species have a telepathic relationship. So these types of communication means that are more physical, these aren't usually how the communications are done. They're done more telepathically or through more distortions on the naturalistic level that can be measured. So nature itself, anomalies in nature, are things we would encourage SETI scientists and others to observe. These are things that are more correspondent with the presence of multidimensionals.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome.
Up next, there have been a lot of sightings over Washington State, apparently, that are of cube-like UFOs. Can you
Yeah.
speak on this?
Sure. So we have described these beings in the past. They have a strong Saturnian connection and a, you could say, lesser connection to that of Sirius. So many of these craft were observed in ancient times, and it is one of the reasons why certain religious iconography and symbols were developed. So these craft that have geometries, the geometries represent a great deal of things, and one of the things they represent is the consciousness of the occupant. So you will find that it's not only cubes, there's also pyramids that have been seen. And these represent two civilizations, two different civilizations that have worked together in ancient times. When they are working together in very intimate ways, it is as if their craft align so the pyramid is on top of the cube. And the cube acts as a reinforcing base and structure. So these types of craft can be put together, and in many instances are, if the creative collaborative project requires it. So remember that you are moving into your golden age, as it's described. The golden age is both a solar age and a Saturnian age. Age of Aquarius. Yes, Aquarius is ruled by Saturn. And in the East, it is given a golden color. So there is a blend of solar consciousness. You call it the returning of Christ consciousness. But keep in mind the religious metaphors. For those of you that are unfamiliar with them, we will explain them. The idea is Christ is crucified and then ascends to the heavens, where he is reunited with the source consciousness. Therefore, the returning of the Christos, in whatever way that's interpreted, is not just the returning of that being, it is the returning of that being blended with the source consciousness. So this appearance of pyramid and cube is a side effect of that consciousness returning. So it mirrors this quite a bit. There will be more sightings like this, more geometries. Yes, the geometries are connected to larger archetypes that have a high degree of influence in what you would describe as the foundational level. And all you need to do is look at the ancient cultures and see that they emulated these very same geometries. So they are more connected to larger forms of consciousness that have that particular type of relationship with your world.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Up next, so we seem to be having a lot of plane crashes and disappearances on our planet lately. Can you speak on why this may be happening?
It is a reflection of the need for the society to organize its collective energy. Remember, before things physicalize as manifestations, they exist first as an energy. So this means that all people whom are a part of a future experience that is shared had that program for that future experience within them before they even set foot into that future experience. So with regular energy work, those energies, they cannot manifest, that you describe as the energies of disasters. Can't happen. So it is a wake-up call for people. So they can work with their energies in a way that allow not just for the plane rides to be smooth sailing, but the entirety of the life. Remember that the air element, which is of course where the planes fly, this represents the mind, it represents thoughts. Most people, what are they doing each day? In the modernized world where everyone's so sophisticated and intelligent, they're sitting there scrolling, going through hours of depressing stories, sometimes entertaining stories, mindless stories. And this is not a value judgment. This is what many of you describe as modern human behavior in modernized countries. So we're just mirroring back what your society is communicating to us when we describe this. So there's a bunch of different programs being accepted by people. Remember, when stories of tragedy and horror are then blended with little sound bites of humor, it's easier to accept that depressing information. So there's a great deal of acceptance of information, and people begin to think the reality is getting worse as a result of that. They start accepting all of the negativity through its blending with entertainment and humor and all of that. And because you are creating reality very efficiently during these days, during these times, what ends up happening is people get a hyper mirroring effect where all of that energy they've absorbed, well, it's circulating through them. It has to come out somehow. How are they going to do it? So sometimes it can come out in chaotic ways. So this is an invitation for your species to become more energetically conscious, especially on the mental level. Remember, that which you take in through a screen, you're literally taking it in. You're eating it with your eyes, and your brain processes it. Remember, the eyes are an extension of your brain. So it's going into your brain. It's going into your nervous system. So it is programming. It's very important that your species becomes aware of this reality so you can use it intelligently. Remember, you can program yourself in ways that are very helpful. So it is assigned to readjust on the mental level, on the energy level. And of course, there are many news stories going around these days of certain aircraft not being produced with integrity. We're not going to name any names, but there have been many critiques in the construction of these more modern aircraft. So this is also an invitation for the manufacturers to become more detail-oriented in the production and in the maintenance of such vehicles. So that is another reason for it. We're not saying that carelessness caused it in the production, but we are saying it is mirroring that expression so that can be more thoroughly resolved, the idea of how your modern aircrafts are produced.
Okay, thank you.
Remember, there are certain forms of aircraft that fly more efficiently, that are more aerodynamic. It's just that these are more future, and there's a sort of culture with how aircraft are designed. So cultures like to maintain themselves. So this is also an invitation for innovation as much as it is a doubling down on the meticulous analysis of how they're produced.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Up next, is Coca-Cola bad for you, or can you still drink it and be healthy? How does belief systems play into this?
Sure. So a person drinks Coca-Cola and they say, oh, I shouldn't be drinking this. It's so bad for me. They start thinking those thoughts. We'll call that person A. So person A is drinking the Coca-Cola and is sort of beating themselves up for drinking it, metaphorically speaking. The Coca-Cola is more damaging to them. Person drinks a Coca-Cola and enjoys every sip of it. It is not as damaging for them. Why? Because in that fear-based response of, oh, this is so bad for me, I shouldn't be drinking this, this is so harmful, the person is creating chemical states within the body that match that mental script, and they end up hurting themselves, much more than the Coca-Cola would actually hurt them. Now, let's look at person B, who has the Coca-Cola and drinks every sip, and they love it. And they are producing chemicals of enjoyment. It's less harmful for them. And what is also true, the Coca-Cola is abundant in sugar. Their happy chemicals will help the sugar be absorbed more easily. But if they continue like that every day, well, eventually they're going to be saturated with sugar, and they're going to have an overindulgence in that pleasure sensation, which can create a dopamine burnout in the person. Where's the sugar going to go? Does it just disappear? Did you not drink the Coca-Cola? And you could say, well, that was a different version of me, a past version of me. I'm no longer that self that drank the Coca-Cola. Therefore, I technically have no sugar in me. You can take it that far and have success. It requires a high level of focus. It requires a high level of self-hypnotic skill. And I know that may sound strange to hear at first, but keep in mind, your identity is nothing more than a hypnotic script you've given yourself over time and you've bought into. So new belief systems are really new scripts that you buy into. It's like a spell you cast on yourself and you enter into a new expression of the reality through that. So your skill in being able to guide yourself mentally from the identity of the one who drank the Coca-Cola to the one who did not, that needs to be a very sharpened skill. Now, keep in mind, that is a lot of focus and intense concentration and enjoyment, all in the name of enjoying a Coca-Cola. So what is the balance? Person A could benefit a little bit from what person B has. Person B could benefit from a little bit of what person A has. So person A, they are the one who judge the Coca-Cola, they condemn it. If they just said, well, hold on, I don't drink Coca-Cola all the time. It's once in a while. Let me really enjoy this. Well, now they're more like person B and there's less of a harmful effect. Person B, who drinks every sip and loves it, they could benefit from a little bit of what person A has. This is so good. I'm so happy I'm able to drink this and enjoy this. And that's enough for today. There's a lot of sugar in here, and it's important for my health that I don't have too much sugar all the time. Because humans didn't evolve having sugar all the time. It's unnatural. Who am I to argue with the blueprint of nature as an expression of nature? Yes, nature has a design. Nature has a blueprint. So a little bit of humility is needed. Learn about that design. What does the body need? What keeps the body alive? Study nature. Your belief system has an influence on this, of course. There are also, with that, dimensions of nature that represent how the belief system constructs manifest as scaffoldings on higher levels. So it's a higher level of belief system, what you call the natural laws, the natural order and organization of things. It's a higher construct. It's still a construct, just like belief. So you can have your own belief about Coca-Cola having zero negative effects on you. But if that is in contradiction to that structure, eventually there will be some kind of consequence designed to get that person's attention. So person B, they could benefit from what person A has. Enjoy the Coca-Cola and also recognize what's in it. There's a lot of sugar in here. All right. There's a lot of corn syrup in here. All right. Or maybe it's diet. Oh, there's a lot of aspartame in here. Perhaps minimizing that is a good thing. You'll only know if you test it out, see what works for you. These are useful ways of considering the information and the question.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome.
There are some questions about the Buga sphere in Colombia. There was a metallic sphere that was, I guess, seen in that region. Can you speak on this?
Sure. So these spheres operate as vehicles transporting very small beings. They have the ability to densify and de-densify. They utilize their de-densification powers, usually for accessing inner Earth portals that allow for them to teleport into deep multi-dimensional cavernous regions located within the Earth. So they are not originally terrestrial, but have become a terrestrial-centered species through their long-term relationship with the Earth. These types of vehicles are also depicted in certain Renaissance paintings, flying orbs in the sky with little people flying them. So keep in mind that there are other orb-like craft that also exist and larger beings pilot them. That also is a reality. And there are, of course, orbs that are also unmanned. There's no one in them piloting them. They are remotely piloted. And there are some that are utilizing different, you could say, AI applications to pilot themselves. And the AI acts as an extension of a being that is usually a part of a base or is a part of some kind of mothership. So there are all types of variations as to what these orbs can be, but the smaller ones, these usually have a smaller being within.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome.
Up next, is the Mandela effect proof that we are always switching timelines?
It is, and it is also proof that sometimes you're not paying attention. Sometimes it is simply the person was so deeply entrenched in autopilot mode for most of their life that a lot of things were just misinterpreted. So that's one version of it. And it's important not to discount that. Otherwise, a person may think everything's a mandala effect. And they go into that extreme of there's no congruent timeline. What's going on is someone editing the timeline. There are people on your planet right now that live in fear that their timeline is being manipulated from something outside of them. And the mandala effect is the evidence they're using to validate it. So there's an extreme even with that. So it's important to acknowledge both. Sometimes people are that unconscious. Many of you have been in a dream before. You've attempted to read a book or look at a clock. You can't. You can't get a clear read on it. Some can with a high degree of focus, but usually it is very challenging. And it is like this for some people. In other instances, it is representative of a timeline shift, most certainly. There are other variations as well, where it's not necessarily a timeline shift, but for whatever reason, an old symbol was put away and a new symbol was adopted. And the old symbol was sort of shunned into forgetfulness. So that way, the new identity that the new symbol represented could be more easily integrated and accepted. So there are a few variations as to how the mandala effect can happen. Sometimes places change names. Sometimes buildings are torn down and new ones are put in their place. Sometimes a company changes its logo. So there's that version. There's the other version of people just not really paying attention. And then there's the third version, which is a completely different timeline where those original symbols were never present to begin with. And on that timeline, this new one, it's always been the new symbol. So all three variations are a part of the reality. Your discernment is very useful in being able to determine which is which. And that's essential. That way, you can get to know the timeline you are generating. And even though, yes, you shift through billions of different parallel realities per second, they are all usually organized by the same collective timeline frequency. With a strong enough shift, that collective timeline frequency can change, and then those parallel reality experiences will be drawing upon a new timeline frequency as their baseline organization. So knowing which is which will help you to know how you're shifting and will also help you to guide your shifts. If you notice a big one, a big mandala effect, pay deep attention to it. Analyze it as a dream symbol. What did the old symbol represent? What does the new symbol represent? And think of it as a story, like characters. How did person A, the old symbol, transform into person B? And you're going to get spiritual information about why that specific mandala effect, or rather Mandela effect, was experienced. You'll get insights into it. So interpret it like a dream, and it will teach you more.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome.
Up next, how do cursed objects such as the Annabelle doll actually work and reflect energies?
Dolls in particular have a symbol, a morphology, a structure, if you will, that's very human. So many entities that you call demonic or dark or shadow, many of them have a familiarity with the human realm. Why? Because your realm projects shadow. All you have to do is stand out in the sun, and there's the shadow realm right there. You feed into it. All of you feed into the shadow realm. So beings of the shadow realm, they have a knowledge of humanity. Furthermore, there are many people, because of their focus, when they move into the higher dimensions following the physical life, it is as if, because of the lack of integration, different dimensions of their being go into different dimensions. So there's shadow that's not processed. Sometimes this goes into what's called the ghost world or the shadow world, while their higher self and more of their soul is able to go up. So it sort of lets that weight go. And that's a process that occurs for those whom are not living lives that are perhaps very spiritual lives. And they carry a lot of burden, a lot of weight, a lot of shadow with them. They don't have anything that transforms it. So it's like their whole life's just accumulation. It's like never cleaning your bedroom. It just accumulates more and more and more. That's how that can be for people. So all that energy has to go somewhere. So it will sometimes go into the shadow realm, while the more light dimensions of them go up into the higher dimensions. So these types of discarded shadow identities, if they have enough energy, will seek to sustain themselves in certain ways. And that's where you get the idea of a haunting or something like this. And because they are familiar with human forms, sometimes they will impress themselves onto dolls or statues or even paintings that depict people. Sometimes even wax sculptures and things like this. So it's not always a shadow entity doing this, but that's one of the reasons why shadow entities will be drawn to those kinds of forms, because it is familiar to them. And it also allows for them a great deal of experience because it's a human-like form. The type of geometry it will align them with will allow for them to mirror the human experience. Where if they were to possess a key, the geometry would be that of a key. And maybe they can do interesting things with that, but maybe not as many. So the dolls and these types of things will be usually selected because of that morphology, that structure.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome.
Up next, would Ryokah or Bashar or anyone from your civilization ever consider channeling in front of our scientists or politicians in a public setting to see if conversation could help create solutions?
Certainly, yes. And similar things have been done before and will continue. So the idea is that many politicians are going through their own awakening spiritual processes. And as a result of this, there's a lot of open-mindedness to new ideas. And at the same time, there is also a sense of suspicion, not wanting to look foolish, not wanting to be betrayed. So there's a guardedness that's also there simultaneously while there's an openness to these new ideas. So these types of conversations had been had in the past, and they were received so-so. It is likely in the future there's going to be greater openness, especially as you continue onward towards 2027. So not only are we open to this, similar things have been performed, and it is likely they shall continue to be performed. So that way, the conversations are able to be had with the right people in the right places, so the right doors can be opened. You see, this is crucial. So that way, people don't feel like they're being left out, like they're losing control and power. Because people that feel like they're losing those things will do desperate things out of self-preservation. So these types of teachings are meant to permeate all ears. So those that you call scientists, politicians, they are included in that description.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Up next, the Dogon culture of West Africa knew about Sirius B before Western telescopes. Can you tell us about the ET beings that visited them and if we still have contact with them?
Yes, they're still present. Many of them have aquatic underwater bases off the coast of Africa. Their form, think of a tall gray being. Some of them having dreadlocks, large eyes, almond eyes. Some amphibious with the same kind of descriptions, with the hair and the form, taller in nature. And some more scaly, less hair. So there's variations within that group that visited the Dogon people. They didn't all look exactly the same, just not all people look exactly the same. If you gathered 10 humans from 10 different countries, put them on a spaceship and brought them to a world, they would say, wow, there's so many variations of humanity. They all have a similar appearance, but they all have uniqueness. So the beings that visited the Dogon are like this. So there's some variation in the appearance.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome.
So we have a persistent question from someone who is asking if they would be able to regrow limbs or teeth or anything like that. Would that be possible for the human, and what would that process look like?
Sure. So humans have had this ability in the past. There have been many versions of humanity that have existed, and there have been some genetic variations of humanity that were spliced, you could say, genetically with the information, genetically speaking, from different reptilian groups. And these people could regrow bones, they could regrow limbs, they could regrow teeth, they could regrow hair, they could regrow nails. They would not die, essentially. So many of them are still alive, these hybrids, self-regenerating. So such things are possible. To achieve this in the human body, in its current form, there are certain things that are needed. And it is an evolutionary process. What I'm going to describe here is something that perhaps you will start and pass on to your descendants. And then perhaps they keep the practices going and pass it on to theirs. And then before you know it, someone's able to regrow what they need to regrow. So it can go that way. It depends on your level of focus. It can be something that you experience success with in a particular area. Perhaps you may not be able to regrow an arm, but perhaps you are able to regrow a tooth. So there's variations in how successful you can be with such abilities. The main key for doing this, though, is psychic genetic modification. So introducing serpentine or reptilian themed genetics into your body. And this is done astrally. There's ways this can be done. There's different beings that offer such services. You can also perform that overlay yourself if you know how to, using esoteric visualizations and things like this. And that will activate the parts of the DNA that remember those more hybridized times. And the biochemical processes that are connected to those times and abilities will start to manifest. So once you've activated the genetic capability, it's then a matter of directing that energy to the area that requires the restoration and the healing. So start small before you go big. So that way you build confidence, heal small things, then work up to bigger things. Instead of working on a really big thing and being more challenging than you think and then giving up, which is what happens to some folks when they attempt to heal themselves. So start small, work up, build the confidence. In terms of technologies and things like this, it is probable that there will be a return of some of these capabilities. You have technologies like CRISPR technologies allowing for you to edit the human genome. So these types of things can also mechanically be turned on. And do keep in mind that turning such things on genetically, especially in a mechanical way, can have a particular effect, a myriad of particular effects that can't always be predicted. So if serpentine DNA is turned on, this may also turn on the lower chakras and the brain stem. They're correspondent. So how you modify the self must be done very carefully. So that way you really know what you're doing and the types of effects you desire to get. And really, is that modification necessary? And is there another way to go about it? So these types of things are possible. There are also certain technologies that can allow for limbs to be regrown through the introduction of a light matrix that is projected upon the area where the missing limb phantomly resides. And from here, higher dimensional energies are brought in that allow for that light matrix to conform into tissue. It's as if the energy of a stem cell itself is brought into that light matrix, and the person's arm or leg or whatever it is can be restored. So this also exists. This is very high technology, and this is not something that is currently on Earth. This is a future technology, and there are species that currently work with it and are currently masterful with it and use it to assist those whom are open to such things. And of course, there is the idea of being able to 3D print limbs. So, a lot of things on the way, and many things already here.
Yes, indeed. So let's go perhaps to our last question of the day.
All right.
And this might be relevant for the channeler as well. But can you speak on Japan and the culture of Japan? Why is it that they have such a strong degree of how far any idea is developed? What's the reason for it?
There's a few different reasons for it, but look at Japan as a land. It's an island. Limited resources. So since the ancient of ancient days, the people of Japan have had to be incredibly resourceful, incredibly creative, incredibly disciplined and focused, because if one member of the tribe was seen as wasting resources and not contributing, they could break down the whole island's success. So it created a social pressure for everyone to become very masterful in their craft, in their gifts. So that way, all people and resources were optimized. So a communal mentality was developed early on. And this is partially because of the telepathic connection that the original Zhou or Jomon people brought to Japan, whom are the Lemurian descendants. So Lemurian descendants traveled to the Japanese islands. They carried with them a telepathic link. And the earliest record of them is the Zhou or the Jomon people within the history of Japan. So these are some of the reasons for why that ambitious and also considerate mentality was developed. It's a matter of necessity, a matter of survival, and also a matter of ability. That type of working together mentality and telepathic connection was a part of their previous expression of a society and civilization. So they sort of picked up where they left off a little bit. And as a result, the entire country has a spiritual current that is alive to this day and very active moving through it. They brought that current with them, and all cities within Japan, they have shrines that are active with people tending to them, going to them. It is as if the myriad of gods that existed in ancient Sumer took up a more peaceful residence in the Japanese islands. In ancient Sumeria, there were shrines, temples abundant everywhere. Local gods, local deities, local spirits, everyone had their own little temple. Even in the house, there was a little shrine for the spirit of the house. So that spiritual reverence and that spirit of animism, that didn't stop in Japan. They kept that going. So that's another reason for this.
Okay, great. So do we have time for one more or?
At this time, we will allow the channel to return to a normalized state so he can prepare himself for some of the activities that he has upline in his reality. We thank you all for these exciting questions you have shared with us. It is so joyful to be able to dive into these topics. And when you ask these questions, it is as if a painting appears before us, and the painting is a living watercolor painting. We're able to jump into it and explore these different dimensions with all of you. So all of the questions that you have brought, you formulated them in your minds. Therefore, when we answer your questions, we are also touring your mind a little bit. It is quite enjoyable. We thank you for being the beautiful builders of physical reality that you are. Our unconditional love and appreciation to you all. And we look forward to our next live stream here on YouTube, July 4th. Good day, good now, and sweet dreams.
Atu.
Ha'atu. Okay. Thank you so much, everybody. That was a crazy, interesting transmission. A lot of topics and a lot of new information. So thanks for the great questions. And Starshine, thank you for selecting those questions and keeping the energy nice and abundant for the whole transmission. We appreciate it.
Of course, it was great seeing everyone as always. And thanks, Tyler, Ryokah, and we'll see you next time.
We will see you next time, guys. Have a great start to this weekend, and I'll see you when I return.